everyone, welcome back to my channel. Every year I try to talk about the books that I've already read and give you some stats in terms of how many I wanted to read and how many I thought I was going to read, that sort of thing, and the genres. This is mainly for me to sort of look back on, but I know that quite a lot of people are interested in stats as well, so it's something you might find interesting too. So I have my notebook, Courses Dracula. Love it. I had it off my grandparents for my birthday last year, I think. So I wanted to read 75 books this year in total, and the amount of books I've actually read is quite shocking. I'm actually 18 books behind my schedule at the moment, which the reading slump has been real this year. It's not something I'm going to beat myself up over, because there might be a week where I do have a really good reading week and I manage to catch up with my goal, but if I don't reach it, I don't reach it. 75 books was quite a lot for me anyway. That would have been the most I've ever read. I think I managed to get to 70 books last year just. So it was a little bit sort of out there to give myself that reading goal anyway. The amount of books that I've actually read this year so far has been 22, which isn't great, but then I suppose it's not too bad when you break it down. Reading one book in June definitely didn't help though. The amount of rereads that I've read is technically 2, because I read the Twilight graphic novel of the first book, so it's split into 2 parts, and I read volume 1 and volume 2. While it was quite similar to the book itself, as it was a rewrite, obviously it's not the actual book, so it kind of is a reread, but it's not a reread, if that makes any sense. And my average rating so far for books this year is quite higher than I think it ever has been, and I found this quite interesting, to be honest, because usually the amount of books that I give lower scores to are higher. That doesn't necessarily mean that the books are bad in other people's eyes, it's all down to personal preference, and I only tend to give books 5 stars if I love them. If they're my absolute favourite books that I would recommend to everybody, that's what gets 5 stars. So a lot of books that I would rate 4 stars, other people might rate 5 stars. We just all have different ways of rating books, but I rated 11 books 4 stars so far, 6 books 5 stars. Some years I'll have under 10 books that are 5 stars, so the fact that I've got 6 already is a very good sign. 4 3-star reads altogether is probably the rating that I give the most, so it's quite interesting that it's actually moved up to 4 stars this year. Then I only give 1 book 2 stars, and that was originally 3 stars, but after reviewing it and after sort of mulling it over, I do think it was a 2-star read, because while I didn't hate the book, it wasn't as good as the other books that I've rated 3 stars, so I do feel it was a 2-star read for me. I've started using something called CoPile, and that gives you a better representation of how much you enjoyed a book as well. It's made by Book Roast, and she's a brilliant YouTuber. I will leave a link to her video explaining CoPile in more detail. If you do want me to talk about it in more detail though, I will do a separate video on my experiences with it and how I'm using it to sort of track all my books. I'm thinking of doing one at the end of the year just to sort of give an idea of my overall stats. I know it's not something that everybody's interested in, but I know some people enjoy those types of videos. In terms of my most read genre group, you might be surprised. So I thought that it would have been horror, but actually my most read so far this year has been contemporary. I've read 8 contemporary books, 4 horror books, 2 fantasy books, 4 sci-fi books, and 2 supernatural books, which I'm classing the Twilight graphic novels under. It surprised me that I've read so much sci-fi, because that's always the genre that I'm I never read much of, but apparently this year I have. Fantasy, that doesn't shock me. I think I've read 1 non-fiction book. In terms of the age ratings of the books, again, I thought the adult would be my top genre, but I've only actually read 4 adult books this year, if you're not including classics, because I've read 1 classic, I've read 6 graphic novels, which I'm really happy with because I've wanted to read more graphic novels this year, and I've actually read 11 YA books, and I think a lot of this has come down to books that I've reviewed, But in general, I've reviewed a lot less books this year than I usually would. I've been a lot better with my requesting and only accepting books that I feel like I'm really going to enjoy. So I feel like that's why this year my ratings for books so far have been a lot higher, because I've sort of set the bar to only read books that I know that I'm really going to enjoy. Because sometimes you do feel a pressure when you're like a reviewer and a blogger and a booktuber to sort of read as many of the books as you've sort of like been asked to read as possible. But now I've just sort of said, no, I'm only going to read the ones that I really think I'm going to enjoy, because I think a lot of the time when you accept books that you're like not 100% sure if you're going to enjoy or not is a risk, and that's why you end up with a lot of like 3 stars or 2-star reads. I'm super happy with my progress in terms of like my ratings, and I would like to read a lot more books. Obviously I'm so far behind on my Goodreads goals. I don't know if I am going to finish them, but I'm going to try. I mean, when I've got like weeks off work, I'll definitely going to try and read more. I want to do a lot more reading challenges on this channel as well, to sort of like get myself reading more, because I'm a mood reader, not necessarily like reading challenges where like I read specific books, but sort of like reading 50 pages a day, reading 100 pages a day, that sort of thing, just to get me back into the mindset of reading daily, because I've sort of fallen out of that recently and I would like to get back into that. I will see you soon in another video.